Good morning, all of you. Today, we shall start with the ailing planet, the Green Movement's Rule by Nani Palkhiwala. The following article was written by Nani Palkhiwala and published in the Indian Express on 24 November 1994. The issues that he raised regarding the declining health of the earth continue to have relevance. Now, whatever he has discussed in this article in 1994, they are still relevant. Those kind of things he has discussed in this article. It's a very interesting article. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. One cannot recall any movement in world history which has gripped the imagination of the entire human race so completely and so rapidly as the Green Movement, which started nearly 25 years ago. So, the Green Movement, which started before 25 years, has gripped the imagination of the entire world completely and rapidly, and in 1972, the world's first nationwide Green Party was founded in New Zealand. Since then, the movement has not looked back, means the movement is going on at a very rapid pace. We have shifted, one hopes, irrevocably from the mechanistic view to a holistic and ecological view of the world. Now, the point of view, the things that you need to focus on have been shifted from mechanistic view to a holistic and ecological view. It is a shift in human perception as revolutionary as that introduced by Copernicus, who taught mankind in the 16th century that the earth and the other planets revolved round the sun. When Copernicus discovered that the earth and the other planets revolve around the sun, at that time it was a revolution. And today, say before 25 years, this particular green movement that started was of the same significance, same importance as this Copernicus discovering that the earth and the other planets revolved, and both of them were revolutionary events. For the first time in human history, there is a growing worldwide consciousness that the earth itself is a living organism, an enormous being of which we are parts. For the first time, this has happened. And for the first time, it has happened that, say, we have realized, the whole human race has realized that we are a part of this enormous, a huge being that is the earth, and it is a living organism. It has its own metabolic needs and vital processes which need to be respected and preserved. The earth has its own metabolic needs. We have to see to it that we fulfill that, and it has some vital, means very important processes which need to be respected, and we need to preserve them. The earth's vital signs reveal a pattern in declining health. The earth's vital signs, the important signs that the earth is showing, they show that the health of the earth is declining. We have begun to realize our ethical obligations to be good stewards of the planet and responsible trustees of the legacy of the future generation. And as we have realized the signs that the earth is giving, that its health is deteriorating, is declining, so we feel that we are obliged, it is our duty to be good stewards of the planet, take care of the planet, and be responsible trustees of the legacy of the future generation and hand over the earth to the future generation in a good condition. The concept of sustainable was popularized in 1987 by the World Commission on Environment and Development. In its report, it defined the idea of development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their needs. That is, without stripping the natural world of resources future generation would need. So, this concept of sustainable development became popular in 1987. What is this sustainable development? Sustainable development means we use the natural resources that the earth provides for the present generation, but we do not compromise the ability of those resources to be used in future also. That means we have to use the resources in such a way and do the development in such a way that the future generation also can use the same resources without deteriorating the quality of those resources. In the zoo at Lusaka, Zambia, there is a cage where the notice reads, "The world's most dangerous animal." Inside the cage, there is no animal but a mirror where you see yourself. Thanks to the efforts of a number of agencies in different countries, a new awareness has now dawned upon the most dangerous animal in the world. So it's good that there are some agencies working to create awareness about the environment of the earth, and because of that, this dangerous animal, that is human being, has become aware about it. He has realized the wisdom of shifting from a system based on domination to one based on partnership. Earlier, say, man always thought that he dominates the nature and he can utilize the nature for his progress and development. But now he realizes that he is a partner, and if he takes something, he himself is giving something in that. Scientists have catalogued about 1.4 million living species with which mankind shares the earth. So there are 1.4 million living species which live with human beings on this earth, and we share this earth with so many living species. Estimates vary widely as regards the still uncatalogued living species. Now, these are the catalogued living species, 1.4 million. There are many which have not been catalogued, and there are estimates as to how many other species would be there, and those estimates vary widely. Biologists reckon that about 3 to 100 million other living species still languish unnamed in ignominious darkness. So, according to the biologist, there are say 3 to 100 million other living species. 1.4 million we have already catalogued, but there are around 3 to 100 million other living species which are surviving in this on this earth, and they have not been named. One of the early international commission which dealt inter alia with questions of ecology and environment was the Brent Commission, which had a distinguished Indian as one of its members, Mr. L.K. Jha. The first Brent report raised the question, are we to leave our successors a scorched planet of advancing deserts, impoverished landscapes, and ailing environment? This was the question raised by Mr. L.K. Jha. That are we going to hand over the earth to the future generation in a pathetic condition wherein the deserts are advancing, the landscapes are not so good, and the environment is ailing, suffering. Mr. L.R. Brown, in his thoughtful book, The Global Economic Prospect, points out that the Earth's principal biological systems are four: fisheries, forests, grassland, and croplands, and they form the foundation of the global economic system. Now, this is very simple to understand that basically are from the earth. Which are the four things? Say fisheries, forests, grasslands, and croplands. To supplying our food, these four systems provide virtually all the raw material for industry except minerals and petroleums derived synthetics. So we get everything other than the food, also many things we get from the four systems that are prevalent, except those things which we get from minerals and petroleum. In large areas of the world, human claims on these systems are reaching an unsustainable level. All over the world, there are large areas where human claims on these systems, that humans have dominated these systems, and now these systems of fishery, forestry, grassland, and cropland have reached to such a level which can be called an unsustainable level, means these things may not last long. A point where the productivity is being impaired, the productivity of forest, landscape, and all those things is being affected. When this happens, fisheries collapse, forests disappear, grasslands are converted into barren wastelands, and croplands deteriorate. In a protein conscious and a protein hungry world, overfishing is common every day, because people are protein conscious, so more fish are needed, and overfishing is common every day these days. In poor countries, local forests are being decimated in order to procure expensive that what goes under the pot now costs more than what goes inside it. Now, in some places, firewood has become so expensive. In poor countries, local forests are being decimated, means decreased in number, in order to procure, means to obtain firewood for cooking. In poor countries, for firewood for cooking, the forests are being cut down. At some places, what has really happened is that firewood has become so expensive that what goes under the pot to cook, that is the fire, costs more than what goes inside it. Suppose say you are boiling rice, then the rice may not cost so much as the fire. That means what goes under the pot costs more than what goes inside it. Since the tropical forest is, in the words of Mr. Mayers, the powerhouse of evolution, several species of life face extinction as a result of its destruction. Since the tropical forest is, in the words of Mr. The tropical forest is the powerhouse of evolution. That's what Dr. Myers says. Several aspects of life face extinction as a result of its destruction. Now, these tropical deserts, tropical forests are deteriorating, are being destroyed, and as a result of that, several species of life are facing extinction, means they will not be in this world anymore. It has been well said that forests precede mankind. That forests are before the mankind. Deserts follow. So, before man, there were forests. After man, there are deserts. The world's ancient patrimony of tropical forest is now eroding at the rate of 40 to 50 million acres a year. So 40 to 50 million acres of forests is being cut down or destroyed every year. And The growing use of dung for burning deprives the soil of an important natural fertilizer. Now, as say this cow dung is used as fuel, so the soil does not get the natural fertilizer which it used to get earlier. The World Bank estimates that a five-fold increase in the rate of forest planting is needed to cope with the expected fuel wood demand in the year 2000. Now, World Bank estimates that we need to grow forest at the rate of fivefold, means 5 times, to cope up with the expected fuel wood demand. The fuel wood that is demanded, to cope up with that, we need to increase the rate of forest by 5 times. James Peth, the president of the World Resources Institute, said the other day, we were saying that we are losing the forest at an acre a second, but it is much closer to an acre and a half to a second. So, there, James Peth, he draws our attention towards a more pathetic situation that every second 1 acre of forest is being destroyed. That was told before James Peth. But James Peth says that it's not 1 acre a second, it is 1.5 acre per second. Article 48A of the Constitution of India provides that the state shall endeavour to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forest and wildlife of the country. But what causes endless anguish is the fact that laws are never respected nor enforced in India. In our constitution, there is a rule that the state will protect the wildlife and the forest, but unfortunately, the laws are not respected and are not enforced. For instance, the constitution says that the casteism, untouchability, and bonded labor shall be abolished, but they flourish shamelessly. Even after 44 years of operation of the constitution, the constitution is in operation for the last 44 years. In constitution, it is written clearly that casteism, untouchability, and bonded labor will be abolished, but still they do flourish shamelessly. A recent report of our Parliament's Estimates Committee has highlighted the near catastrophic depletion of India's forest over the last 4 decades. It has reached its climax, but climax of wrong thing is called a catastrophic depletion. India, according to the reliable data, is losing its forest at the rate of 3.7 million acres a year. So in India, every year 3.7 million acres of land that was forest earlier is not forest, and that is the decrease in it. Large areas officially designated as forest land are already virtually treeless. There are large areas which are given the status of forest, but there are no trees there. The actual loss of forest is estimated to be about 8 times the rate indicated by government statistics. The government releases statistical data as to how much area of the forest has reduced, but the reality is that if the government says that 1 acre, it would be 8 times, that is 8 acres of forest depletion. A 3-year study using satellites and aerial photography conducted by the United Nations warns that the environment has deteriorated so badly that it is critical in many of the 88 countries investigated. Now, aerial photography is conducted by the satellites, and a 3-year study. After 3 years study of these photographies, the United Nations warns that the environment has deteriorated badly that it is critical in many of the 88 countries investigated. They have investigated many countries, from that in 88 countries the things are critical. There can be no doubt that the growth of world population is one of the strongest factors distorting the future of human society. The greatest problem is the world population, which is, say, increasing rapidly. It took mankind more than 1,000,000 years to reach the first billion. For the total population to become first billion, mankind took how many years? 1,000,000 years, 10 lakh years. That was the world population around the year 1800. By the year 1900, a second billion was added. So from 1800 to 1900, the population increased or doubled up, and the same thing had happened in how many years? 1,000,000 years. The first billion population happened to be in 1800, and the human beings had been on earth for 1,000,000 years, for 10 lakh years. After that, in 1800, the population was 1 billion. Whereas in other 100 years after 1800, in 1900, it straight away became 2 billion. And the 20th century has added another 3.7 billion. The present world population is estimated at 7 billion. Every 4 days, the world population increases by 1 billion. This is the situation. Fertility falls as incomes rise, education spreads, and health improves. Now, as income of the people increases, education is spread, and the health improves, the fertility falls down. Thus, development is the best contraceptive. If people are educated, if people are wealthy, and if they are healthy, then they will not produce more children. But so it is the best contraceptive if development takes place. But development itself may not be possible if the present increase in number continues. If the population keeps on increasing at the same rate, then development is not possible. The rich get richer and the poor beget children, which condemns them to remain poor. The rich get richer and the poor, they produce more children, and because of that they remain poor. More children does not mean more workers, merely more people without work, because those people are not educated, not skilled, so they do not add to the labor force. Instead of that, they only add to people without work, that is unemployed people. It is not suggested that human beings be treated like cattle and compulsorily sterilized. It is not suggested. We cannot say that people should be, say, sterilized like cattle so that the population does not increase. But there is no alternative to voluntary family planning without introducing an element of coercion. The choice is really between control of population and perpetuation of poverty. You have the choice, and the choice is always between bad and worse. Either you control population, which in itself is a difficult task, or continue to be poor. The choice is between these two. The population of India is estimated to be 920 million today. At present, it is far more than this. More than the entire population of Africa and South America put together. No one familiar with the conditions in India would doubt that the hope of the people would die in their hungry hutments unless population control is given topmost priority. Anybody who is aware about, is familiar about the situation would not doubt that the people would die in their hutments, in their hungry hutments, means they would not be having food also, if population is not controlled, and if it is population control is not given priority. For the first time in human history, we see a transcending concern, the survival not just of the people but of the planet. Now we can see the concern, the people are worried. The human in the history of human beings, for the first time it has happened that the concern is the survival not just of the people but of the planet. Earlier the only concern was the survival of the people. Now we are also concerned about the survival of the planet. We have begun to take a holistic view of the very basic basis of our existence, that we have started considering the holistic view as the primary thing. It is our passport for the future. If we want to go into future, we need to have this. The environmental problem does not necessarily signal our demise. We are not going to die because of environmental problem, but this is the passport that we get to future. The emerging new world vision has ushered in the era of responsibility. The new vision, the emerging vision, is leading us towards the era of responsibility, that we need to be responsible. It is a holistic view, an ecological view, seeing the world is an integrated whole rather than a disassociated collection of parts. That the world is not a collection of parts but it is integrated as a whole, and there is a cumulative effect everywhere. Industry has the most crucial role to play in this new era of responsibility. That a transformation would be effected if more businessmen shared the view of the chairman of DuPont, Mr. Edgar S. Woolard, who 5 years ago declared himself to be the company's chief environmental officer. He said, "Our continued existence as a leading manufacturer requires that we excel in environmental performance." That if we want to continue existing as the leading manufacturer, then we also have to excel in environmental performance. Of all the statements made by Margaret Thatcher during the year of her prime ministership, none has passed so decisively into the current coin of English usage as her fallacious words. No generation has a free hold of this earth. All we have is a life tenancy with a full repairing lease. So this is what we have got the earth as. That no generation, the earth belongs to no one particular generation. We have a tenancy, life tenancy, for your lifelong you can use this earth. But the lease that you have to pay, the rent that you have to pay is full repairing lease, that whatever you destroy you have to grow. In the words of Mr. Lester Brown, we have not inherited this earth from our forefathers, we have borrowed it from our children. Thank you very much. Go through the lesson again and you can jot down the doubts and ask me. Thank you.